The air was still that morning, too still. The kind of silence that comes before everything changes. A lioness named Kira stood at the edge of the savanna, her body trembling not from cold, but from something deeper, something primal. Her cub was gone, not lost, not wandering, gone, and she knew exactly who had taken him. 2 kilometers away, a massive rhino was walking through the grassland like he owned every inch of it. His name was Savanna, a 4-ton tank of muscle and horn that had ruled this territory for 12 years. He had survived poachers, droughts, and rivals. Nothing scared him, but what he did not know was that he had just made the worst mistake of his life. He had killed a lion cub, and in the next 72 hours, he would discover that some mothers do not mourn, some mothers hunt. This is the story of what happens when nature's rules get broken, when a cub pays the price for being in the wrong place, and when a mother decides that vengeance is worth more than safety. This is the true story of the Kira pride, and how one act of violence set off a chain reaction that rewrote the hierarchy of the entire Serengeti Reserve. To understand what Kira became, you need to understand where she came from. Because this lioness was not born a killer. She was not raised in brutality. She was born into a pride that taught her one simple rule: protect your family at any cost. Kira was 7 years old when she took control of the Northern Pride. She had 2 sisters, both younger, both loyal. Together they had claimed this territory from an aging coalition that did not have the strength to hold it anymore. No blood was spilled that day. The old males simply left, understanding that their time was over. For 3 years, Kira and her sisters hunted together, lived together, and raised cubs together. They had built something special, a family where the bond was not just about survival. It was about love, something you do not see very often in the wild. But when you do, it changes everything about how you understand these animals. Kira had given birth to 3 cubs in the past season, 2 females and 1 male. The male was named Rafiki, and he was her favorite, not because he was stronger, because he was kind. Unlike his sisters who fought over every scrap, Rafiki shared. Unlike the other cubs who bullied the weak ones, Rafiki protected them. He was only 8 months old, but his mother could already see the lion he was going to become, a good one. On the morning everything changed. Kira had left the cubs with her sister while she hunted. This was normal. This was safe. The pride's territory was well marked, well defended. No predator crossed these borders without the brothers knowing about it. The 2 males who protected this pride were massive, 7 years old, in their physical prime, with manes so dark they looked black in certain light. They were called the Shadow Brothers because rangers had watched them move through the bush like shadows, silent and deadly. The cubs were playing near a watering hole when Kira's sister left to hunt with the rest of the pride. She told them to stay close. She told them to be quiet. She told them everything they needed to know to stay alive. But cubs do not always listen. Cubs are curious, and Rafiki was more curious than most. He wandered away from his sisters, following the sound of birds coming from a nearby thicket. He did not know that he was walking toward the territory of the savanna rhino. He did not know that rhinos see lion cubs the way humans see rats. Something to be eliminated before it becomes a problem. The attack was fast, too fast for Rafiki to run, too fast for him to call out. Savanna had come around the thicket with his head lowered, and he had driven his horn straight through the cub's small body. One moment Rafiki was chasing butterflies. The next moment his world went dark. The rhino did not stop to check if he was dead. He did not care. For him it was just another predator removed from his territory. He walked away like nothing had happened, leaving behind a small body that would never grow into the lion he was supposed to become. When the pride returned, they found him first, one of the sisters. She saw Rafiki lying in the dust, and she roared, not a hunting roar, not a territorial roar, a roar of pure loss. The sound carried across the savanna and reached Kira where she was crossing a river. She knew before she even saw his body. A mother always knows. She ran. Guides who were tracking the pride said they had never seen a lion move so fast. Not hunting, not fighting, just pure desperation mixed with something darker, something that looked like revenge. When Kira reached the thicket, she knelt beside her son and did something the guides did not expect. She did not roar, she did not rage. She simply lay down next to him and stayed there for hours. Her sisters circled around her, protecting her the way she had always protected them. The two shadow brothers appeared on the ridge above them and roared so loud that every animal in 5 kilometers could hear them. It was a roar that said one thing: someone was going to pay for this. The hunt began at dusk. Kira did not lead it. Her sisters did. They picked up Savanna's scent and followed it with a precision that showed this was not their first hunt. These were experienced hunters who knew how to read the ground, how to predict movement, how to set traps. But tracking a rhino is not like tracking zebra or buffalo. A rhino knows when you are behind him, and he knows how to fight back. Savanna heard them coming and did what rhinos do. He ran, 4 tons of armor charging through the bush with surprising speed for something so massive. The lionesses kept up, not because they were faster, because they were smarter. They split up. 2 females went wide, trying to cut off escape routes. 2 went straight, keeping him moving in the direction they wanted. It was the oldest hunting strategy in the book. Divide and conquer. Make your enemy run the way you want him to run. The chase lasted nearly an hour. Savanna was tiring. Even his massive body could not keep up that pace forever. His breathing was getting heavy. His movements were getting slower. The lionesses could smell blood in the air now, but not from him. Not yet. They were getting closer. They were going to catch him. But then something happened that changed everything. The 2 shadow brothers appeared in front of him. Savanna stopped. For a moment, predator and prey stared at each other down. The rhino was backing up now, his horns still lowered, ready to fight. And that is when Savanna made a choice that no animal in the savannah would have predicted. Instead of running, instead of fighting, he charged straight at the brothers, head down, horn forward, moving like an avalanche. The older shadow brother tried to dodge, but Savanna was faster than he looked. The rhino's horn caught him across the face, leaving a wound that would scar him for the rest of his life. The younger brother flanked and tried to bite, but rhino's skin is too thick. Nothing could penetrate it. The beast was swinging his head now, trying to gore both males at the same time. This was not going the way the pride had planned. For 15 minutes the battle raged, 4 predators against 1 prey animal. It should have been over in minutes. But Savanna was not going down without taking half the pride with him. He had already wounded the older brother. Now he caught the younger one on his horn and lifted him off the ground. The lion roared in pain and kicked his way free, landing hard and limping away from the fight. The 2 lionesses who were supposed to be cutting off escape routes were closing in now, but something was wrong. One of them was favoring her front leg. She had been kicked by the rhino, and something was broken. Kira watched all of this from a ridge above. She was not fighting, she was watching, and as she watched, something shifted in her. The grief was still there. The pain of losing Rafiki was still burning in her chest, but now it was mixed with something else. Clarity. She could see what the others could not. Savanna was wounded, yes, but he was too strong, too experienced. He had been surviving for 12 years for a reason. If the pride kept attacking him directly, more of them would get hurt, maybe badly hurt, maybe fatally hurt. Kira stood up and roared, not a roar of anger, but a command. Her sisters immediately broke off the attack. The shadow brothers limped away from the rhino, both wounded, both breathing heavily. Savanna stood there, looking like he had won. Blood dripped from his horn. His sides heaved with exhaustion. He turned and started walking away, back toward his territory, back toward his herd. But the hunt was not over. It was just beginning. What happened next over the next 48 hours was something the rangers had never documented before. It was something that would change how they understood lion behavior forever. Kira did not attack the rhino again. Instead, she and her pride started following him. Day and night they followed, never attacking, never getting close, just always there, always watching, always waiting. Savanna could not rest. Every time he tried to lie down, he heard them. Every time he tried to drink from a watering hole, he would see them in the distance. The other rhinos in his herd started to abandon him. They could sense the danger. They could hear the roars at night that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Kira was using the same strategy the Majingulan had used against the Mapogos, psychological warfare. She was breaking him mentally before she finished him physically. The guides who were tracking the situation from a distance were amazed. One of them, a man named Joseph who had worked in the reserve for 20 years, said he had never seen anything like it. The lioness was thinking like a military strategist. She was studying her enemy, learning his patterns, understanding his weaknesses, and exploiting them with surgical precision. By the second night, Savanna was barely moving. He had not slept in 36 hours. His body was running on adrenaline and fear. He was so exhausted that when the final attack came, he barely put up a fight. The Shadow Brothers attacked from the front. The lionesses came from behind. Unlike the first battle, this was not a fair fight. This was an execution, and when it was over, Savanna lay in the dust next to Rafiki's body, both of them dead, both of them finally at rest. But here is what made this story different from anything the Rangers had ever seen. Kira did not celebrate. She did not roar in victory. She walked over to where Rafiki was still lying, and she lay down beside him. Her sisters joined her. The Shadow Brothers stood guard, and for the first time since she had given birth to him, Kira allowed herself to grieve. The other prides in the reserve heard what had happened, and something shifted in how they treated the Northern Territory. Respect turned into fear. The lionesses of the Kira pride were no longer just hunters. They were something else, something more dangerous. A coalition that did not forget, a coalition that did not forgive, a coalition that would hunt you to the ends of the earth if you hurt their family. 3 months passed. The Shadow Brothers healed from their wounds, though the older one would carry a scar on his face for the rest of his life, a reminder of the day he learned that rhinos could fight back. The 2 younger female cubs thrived, but Rafiki's spot in the pride remained empty. No cub could fill it. No hunt could make the loss smaller. Then one morning, one of Kira's sisters came back to the den with 2 new cubs in her mouth. Where she had found them, no one knew. Maybe they had been abandoned. Maybe their mother had died. Maybe it did not matter anymore. What mattered was that Kira had another chance, another cub to raise, another life to shape. And when she looked down at the smallest one, the runt of the litter, something in her eyes changed. She named him Rafiki too, not as a replacement, never as a replacement, but as a memory, a reminder that even in a world as cruel as the African savanna, love still existed, mothers still fought, families still protected each other, and sometimes vengeance was not about violence. It was about making sure that the ones who came after you would know that you loved them enough to burn the world down. The dry season came, and with it came drought. The watering holes began to shrink. The herds moved farther away. Food became scarce. The Kira pride had to move deeper into unexplored territory, away from the Rangers' usual patrol routes. This is where legends are made, where animals have to be smarter than they have ever been just to survive. Kira's sister was struggling. The new cubs were taking all her energy, and she was not built for this kind of hunting. She was falling behind. Her ribs were starting to show. Her movements were getting slower. One morning, she did not get up. Kira found her lying in the shade, barely breathing. The older lioness had given everything she had. Now there was nothing left. Kira roared for her sister the way she had roared for Rafiki. Not a roar of rage, but a roar of goodbye. A roar that said, "You were part of me, and now you are gone." The younger sister came and lay beside her, and they stayed there until the body went cold. Then they had to move on. In the wild, there is no time to mourn. There is only survival. There is only the next hunt, the next meal, the next chance to keep your family alive. But Kira did not forget. She never forgot. She brought extra meat to the youngest cubs, the ones who would not have survived on their own. She taught them everything she knew about hunting, about territory, about reading the signs that told you where danger was coming from. She became not just a mother, but a teacher, a leader, a legend. Years passed. Rafiki II grew strong, stronger than his sister, faster than any cub the pride had ever produced, and his eyes were like his mother's. They had that same look, that same understanding that family was everything, that love was worth fighting for, that some debts could only be paid in blood. When Rafiki was 3 years old, a new threat appeared on the horizon, a bachelor coalition from the east. 5 males, all young, all hungry, all looking for territory. They had heard about the Kira pride. They had heard about the lioness who hunted rhinos. They had heard the stories, and they did not believe them. They thought the stories were just that, stories. The Shadow Brothers were old now. The older one was limping from an injury he had sustained years ago. The younger one was slower than he used to be. They could not hold off 5 young males, not alone. This is where Rafiki stepped in. He was only 3, barely old enough to hunt with the pride, let alone fight for territory. But he had something that the Shadow Brothers did not have anymore. He had youth. He had speed. He had his mother's instinct. The battle lasted only 3 minutes. Rafiki hit the first bachelor with a charge so powerful that it knocked him into a tree. The second one he wrestled to the ground and pinned. The other 3 took one look at this young lion fighting like a demon and decided this territory was not worth dying for. They turned and ran, not stopping until they were kilometers away. When it was over, Kira walked over to her son and pressed her head against his. It was the same gesture Makulu had used with Mr. T all those years ago in a different pride, in a different part of Africa. It was the gesture that said, "You are one of us. You are family. You are home." That night, the pride killed a buffalo, the biggest one they had hunted in months. They fed until they could not move anymore. They rested in the moonlight, and somewhere in the darkness, a new legend was being born. A legend about a lion named Rafiki, who had his mother's heart. A lion who would grow up to be a protector, not because he had to be, but because it was in his blood. Rungas who have been tracking the Kira pride for the past 5 years say that something has changed. The territory has expanded. The kills have gotten bigger. The pride has grown to 14 members, making them one of the largest coalitions in the entire reserve. But what has really changed is something you cannot measure with numbers or territory maps. What has changed is the spirit of the pride. They move differently now, with a confidence that comes not from strength, but from purpose. They hunt differently, with strategies that suggest planning, communication, understanding. They protect each other differently, with a loyalty that seems almost human. Rangers have documented them bringing kills back to injured members. They have seen them protecting cubs that were not their own. They have witnessed behaviors that the textbooks said were not possible. One ranger, a woman named Maria, who has dedicated her entire life to understanding these animals, said something that stuck with everyone who heard it. She said, Kira taught her pride that love was not a weakness. It was a weapon, and once they understood that, nothing could stop them. The question that haunts every researcher is simple but profound. Was Kira's hunt for vengeance an act of calculated strategy, or was it something deeper? Was it simply a mother protecting her child, the way countless mothers have done throughout history, or was it something that transcended instinct, something that looked almost like consciousness, almost like understanding? The truth is, we may never know. We may never fully understand what drives these animals. We may never know if Kira understood that she was creating a legacy, or if she was simply reacting to the loss of her cub, the only way she knew how. But what we do know is that for the past 5 years, the Kira pride has been ruling their territory with a combination of intelligence and compassion that has changed how the reserve operates. Other prides fear them, not because they are the strongest, but because they are the smartest. Young males challenge them, and they are defeated, not just physically, but emotionally. When you fight the Kira pride, you are fighting not just lions, but the memory of every lion that has come before them, the memory of Rafiki, the memory of the sister who died protecting the young ones, the memory of all the hunts, all the struggles, all the moments where this pride chose each other over survival. And that is a memory that is impossible to defeat. The dry season has come again this year. The watering holes are shrinking. The herds are moving. The rangers are preparing for what is always a dangerous time in the reserve. But they are not worried about the Kira pride, because they know that Kira and her children have already survived worse. They have already faced enemies that seemed impossible to defeat. They have already lost more than most families ever have to lose. The question for the future is not whether they will survive. The question is what they will do with their survival. What legacy will they build? What new stories will the rangers tell about the pride that hunted a rhino for revenge? About the mother who turned grief into power? About the cub who grew up to be a legend? Only time will tell. But somewhere in the Serengeti, under the moonlight, a lioness named Kira is lying in the grass with her family around her. Her daughters are playing. Her son is learning the hunting patterns of the territory. The Shadow Brothers are resting, their bodies finally at peace after years of warfare. And if you listen very carefully, you can hear them breathing together, moving together, living together. The sound of a family that has been forged not just by blood, but by love, by loss, and by the choice to keep fighting even when everything tells you to give up. This is the story of the Kira pride. This is the story of what happens when vengeance becomes purpose, when grief becomes strength, when a mother's love becomes something unstoppable. And this is only the beginning, because the best stories in the African wild are always the ones that are still being written.